Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I do want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. The born to the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching his truth. Peace and blessings to the whole elect of Israel. Yahweh is the name of the Unfather in Hebrew, Ba'ashem is the name, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back in the lesson, it's in the title, an invasion is coming, or some type of effect. Don't know exactly what I'm in your title lesson, but going to be going to a lesson regarding the chariots, which are the so-called UFOs/UAPs today, as well as these many other names that they are called. Because they're also called USOs and all these different things. But within the scriptures, within the Bible, they're known as the chariots, also likened to a wheel, in the middle of a wheel, which can be in Ezekiel, Zephaniah, I believe the 4th chapter. Going to a flying roll, which is likened to a tic-tac or a cigar shape, as you like to call it today. But gonna be going to this quick article right here. It says, mystery object zooming over Washington, D.C. sparks panic as agency scrambles to explain anomaly. And this also just goes to show that this devil is slowly, losing his power, because now he's unable to sweep these things under the rug as he once did. Before he'd be able to make it seem like you were bugged out, that you were crazy for what you've seen, But now, as we continue to progress the ladder into these end days, seeing a lot more chariots beginning to pop up left and right, and they're unable to just, sweep under the rug and say it's nothing. And this is why you now have them coming out and holding these press conferences, these meetings, especially over there dealing with the Pentagon and all this stuff, surround the chariots, because it's unable to be, denied now, for lack of better words, or there's no denying it now, that this is very real. We also see the devil still trying to control the narrative. That's why you see many articles also coming out that they've shot down chariots, that they have the objects and the different things they picked up from the crash landings. They have the bodies and all this different stuff, man. When you get throughout the scriptures, that's impossible. There's no taking out the chariots, man. Because as we're also going to get throughout the scriptures, a war in heaven is getting ready to unfold, getting ready to take place. Which going to the sky, space. So you see within those movies, dealing with these, alien invasions, a war, a fight breaks out. Just going back to that point I was making, how the devil, loves to control the narrative, because you see within those movies, they push that there's green and gray aliens within those vehicles, and, the devil especially just coming out on top in the end, somehow overpowering and overcoming the, great fleet, of these so-called aliens and, the advanced technology. But this is not your movie. So this is Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai's movie, and guess what? You will lose. And hey, we have the script. So hey, we need the spoilers as to what's getting ready to unfold and take place. But I do want to make sure my voice is on, just to be sure. Okay. But it says, mystery object zooming over Washington, D.C. sparks panic as agency scrambles to explain anomaly. So you see, they're still trying to keep the cat in the bag. Still trying not to let things, leak as much as possible, but, they're unable to. And it goes to show that because once again, now they're coming out speaking on the chariots publicly. Let's see, here's a fighter pilot reveals a near miss with perfect rectangle UFO that defied the laws of physics. Going to show you devils stand no chance. And you see many videos will come out surrounding the so-called UFOs, the chariots, and just how much more advanced that they are. And we're saying there's not no greens or grays within those vehicles, but angels. Angels are within those vehicles, and guess what? They're dark-skinned men. And you devils will stand no chance. Going to that point, then with those videos you see these chariots zooming past jets, planes, and most of the time the only reason you're able to see it within the video is because it's super slow-mo. Nearly 100 times slow-mo, and you're still barely able to catch it. It says, a mysterious streak appeared on weather radar over Washington, D.C. on Thursday, sparking theories of weather modification or visitors from another planet. The anomaly visible on radar loops was shared online by Kari Lake, a special advisor to the U.S. Agency for Global Media, who asked anyone know what is shooting across the radar over Washington, D.C. around 3:30 p.m. And you also have at times you'll have these chariots, the angels observing, hovering over, key locations, in different parts of America, Babylon the Great, especially of these military bases. So, you have the chariots and the angels going to your backyard, and guess what? You're doing nothing about it because you're unable to. Your top of the top, trump card, your weapon. It's like your best weapon that you have, dealing with those thermal missiles. They're able to pretty much disarm it. You have a few cases where you have these chariots, disarming missiles, tampering with their weapons. And these devils, say that they're able to take them out. Yeah, right. Now, that was around the time a severe thunderstorm rolled into the area, unleashing heavy rains, damaging winds, gusts, and lightning, which lasted for about 1 hour. But you don't even have this, double Esau. You'll have technology able to, have, planes or helicopters in the midst of a huge, thunderstorm. Because that would be also, very dangerous. You also see other photos, videos where you have a disc-like shape, in the midst of a great thunderstorm, dealing with those chariots. But as the radar tracked the weather system affecting the region in distinct linear straight move across the screen, it was not a typical weather pattern like a rain, snow, or hail, which have appeared more scattered. So while baffling, a meteorologist who works for a weather radar agency chimed in to ease the confusion that was spreading online, so doing damage control, which is what these devils are always trying to do. Well, you see, it's the weather, it's the clouds and the lightning combining against each other to create this weather. This nonsense that these devils be saying. That was just, a little example. But that's how they twist and turn things, man. Well, you see the molecules in the air reflecting off the sunlight, which creates this disc-like shape. Man, shut up. But soon, these chariots will be undeniable. Reality will soon sink in for these people, man. And just what they thought would only be seen in sci-fi, like movies, will be a harsh reality. But let's get a couple of these scriptures. Do have a decent amount. This is Luke 21:25-28. And it says, "And shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of the nations, with perplexity to the sea and the waves roaring." So we're dealing with those signs within the heavens, as we're all seeing, distress of the nations with perplexity. But it says signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. So that also consist of those chariots, these so-called UFOs. Verse 26, as we continue on read, "Men's heart failing for fear, or for looking after those things which are coming in earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken." So you're gonna have people having heart attacks and decide these things, man. Especially when Lord Yahweh shall returns upon that fathership, that great chariot. Verse 27, "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." That cloud is speaking of the chariots, which you also get in Psalms 1:4-3. He breaks that down. Who laid the beams of the chambers in the waters, who made the clouds his chariot. So showing you what that is speaking of. The so-called UFO. Sorry, my throat's dry. It's dealing with those so-called UFOs once again. But verse 27. "And then shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." Verse 28, "And when these things begin to come to pass, and look up to your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh." So we are quite literally almost out of here. So seeing these chariots, these so-called UFOs, is a sign of our salvation, a sign of our deliverance. A sign that we're nearing the end of this place. Which is a great sign for those in the truth, but a terrible sign for the people of this world. Because we continue to have the chariots and angels play a role in salvation of the nation of Israel, but also play a role in the destruction of this place. Read verse 28 one more time. "And when these things begin to come to pass, and look up, lift your heads, for your redemption draw nigh." You can also get Romans 13:11, and our salvation is nearer than we believed. So, seeing these chariots should be a great faith booster, to those of us in this truth and within this faith. This is Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 2. Now it says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen. And main point right here, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. They're the ones that should be shook and afraid of these things, man. You have Jake panic out here. How are we being invaded? Are they here to take our resources? What do we do? This is why you get Isaiah 33:6. How wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy time. Going to show the importance of having this knowledge, this truth. But also going further back into that point, dealing with this narrative that this devil's trying to control. So that when you see these chariots, you think, oh, there's green aliens in there. There's grays, big eyes. No, there are angels within those vehicles once again. And we're also going to go into what they're here and are coming to do. One more time from on top. Thus say the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. It's because the G and T. It's one of my favorite translations to get right here. It says, he says, do not follow the ways of the nations. Do not be disturbed by unusual sights in the sky. Would that not be likened to unusual sight in the sky? Even though other nations are terrified. What's in a great sign for those in this truth, but a terrible sign for people of this world. Revelations 12 and 7 to 8. And there is a war in heaven. And it's not speaking of the spiritual realm or the spiritual Satan rebelling against the Heavenly Father. It's not what it's speaking of. Which I made a whole lesson debunking that. You know? But there's a war in heaven. So dealing with the sky, space, assholes. This being Esau, Edom's kingdom, his heaven, his rulership. Now it says Michael is in front against the dragon. The dragon representing Esau, Edom, his military might. And the dragon fought and his angels, dealing with those troops. Verse 8. And this is the outcome of that battle. And prevailed not. Neither was a place found any more in heaven. So you're going to lose. It's not going to be like the Battle of Los Angeles. It's not going to be, like Independence Day. This is Yahweh Bashimal Shai's movie. And guess what? You lose at the end of it. You're not going to somehow come on top and, blow up the fathership. As you see within the Independence Day, I believe they took down the so-called mothership. That's also another thing that they push. Dealing with this Queen of Heaven spirit. They call it the mothership. We're actually called the fathership, man. But you see within the movie, they find all these different types of ways in order to prevail and come on top. But you're going to lose. It's written. It's a done deal. Now it says, neither is the place found any more in heaven, so they're going to be taken out of power, dethroned. This is Isaiah 66:15. That says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind. See the chariots being brought up once again. And our Lord will return back with an army, with the host of heaven, the angels. Also getting that Psalms, I want to say 68 and 17, if not 13. Going into the chariots most high, 20,000, even thousands of angels. Now it says, for behold, the Lord come with fire, with the chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. And our Lord has come back to slay. 2 Ezra 13 and 1 through 11. And it came to pass that for 7 days I dreamed a dream by night. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. Verse 3. And behold, I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. There you go. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. So you're going to have people they're going to be shocked, struck, with terror, fear. Verse 4. Once in people's realities are going to be broken, man. You can just imagine. Just staring off, in awe. Struck with terror, unable to move. As we read in Luke 21, people having heart attacks, man. Especially when it's that great chariot, that fathership, the Lord's returning back upon. Right when that blocks out the sky. Man. Verse 5. Which I don't know if I read verse 4 actually. So, and whenever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like the earth fell when it fields of fire. Now, it's not literal fire coming out of his actual mouth, which we'll further go into throughout the scripture right here. But it's after this I beheld, and lo, there were gathered together a multitude of men of the number from the four winds of heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. So you're gonna have these nations try to come together to go against our Lord, but you're gonna fail. For that, coming in that full humanity type of spirit. put the spirit on them to fight, which we'll get in verse 8. But it says, "By the beheld, lo, he had given himself a great mountain and flew up upon it." Now, it's not speaking of a literal mountain. It's comparing this great chariot, into that great mountain. That was the closest thing he could use to kind of measure just how massive this chariot was. "But I beheld, and lo, he had given himself a great mountain and flew up upon it." Verse 7, "But I have seen the region or place where the hill was graven, and I could not." So it's going to show just how massive, how enormous. Those are not even fitting words. Verse 8, "And after that, behold, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst to fight, because the Lord has put the spirit on them to fight." Verse 9, "And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted his hand nor held sword nor instrument of war." Going to show that power, man. Verse 10, "But only saw the ascent of his mount, as it had been a blast of fire, and now it was a flaming breath, now his tongue cast out sparks and tempest." So it's going to those laser beams, so that contrary beam of fire being shot from the mouths of those chariots, those so-called UFOs, which you can see many examples of within movies or shows, cartoons, these advertisements, dealing with shoes. Going to show these devils no. Because what does so-called UFOs have to do with shoes? Speaking of this one particular shoe commercial, which I forgot exactly sure it was, but you pretty much had a fleet of chariots shooting those laser beams down. But verse 11, "And they were all mixed together, blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned up every one. So upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid." So these devils are absolutely stand no chance. You're going to have people be turned to literal dust. A good example is that movie War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. They know what's up, man. And this is why you have these devils create a space force. What do you think they're preparing for? This is Matthew 24 and 30 to 31. I made that point earlier, going to show what these chariots and these angels are here and are coming to do. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man, Yahweh shine in heaven, and then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So he's come back with a multitude. Verse 31, "And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one in heaven to the other." So we're seeing you have the angels play a role in the salvation of the nation of Israel, but also play a role in the destruction of this place, as you've read in previous scriptures, Revelation 12, 2 Kings 13. I got a couple more scriptures, and that's the point. Isaiah 11:11 to tie it back to that point. "And it says, shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people." And who was recovered the first time? Back in ancient Egypt, the Israelites. And the Lord has come back to redeem the Israelites, a select few, a small remnant, which is his elect, which will pray that we are part of the Lord's will, which as we all read in Matthew 24 and 31. He shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the four corners of the earth, as we're also going to continue to read right here one more time from on top. "And shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea." So further going to show it's not speaking of those heathen nations, but the Israelites that's in the midst of them, that may look like them. Because you have the speckled bird, you have the Israelite foreigners. You get Deuteronomy, going into the diaspora, the dispersion, and where we have been scattered once again. So how does it make sense that you're going to have heathen nations be gathered from these different lands if they didn't take part in the first time, which once again, who was delivered out of ancient Egypt? The Israelites. That's who the Lord is coming back for, and he's going to redeem. And you have Israelites scattered in the midst of these different lands. He wasn't going to the Israelite foreigners, the speckled bird. So you had Jake scattered to different lands, going into these women of the other nations, and throughout the course of those years, you would have Jake begin to lose their features over time. So now, a lot of these Israelites that may look like, the other nations, but go back to the lineage of Israel, But 2 Chronicles 16:9 made that point earlier, dealing with how these chariots is a great, should be a great faith booster to those in this truth. As for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, that's also another point, going to the eyes of the Lord. What are the eyes of the Lord? The angels. As they run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to show himself strong on behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Hearing thou hast done foolishly, therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars. Let's see. The Lord keeps close watch over the whole world to give strength to those whose hearts are loyal to him. Who's loyal to the Lord? The elect. Look at that. The eyes of the Lord search the whole earth in order to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. But shut it down with wisdom, Psalm 5:2, and that's the point. When they see it, she'll be troubled with terrible fear. They're going to be struck with that fear, man. And you have seen nothing yet. Just wait till the church begin to get close to the ground, becoming a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just prominent, for lack of better words, if that's, the correct word. Just, becoming, just going to that point, they're going to show up a lot more, Expect to see, a lot more of them. Made that point earlier, how it's just going to be undeniable as to just how real, this is. There will be no more excuses to be made when you have a lot more of these churches begin to pop up left and right. Because guess what? It's going to be right in front of your face. But that's the point. I do close out and give all praise, all honor, and glory to Yahweh, B'Shem, Shabbat, Shem, Kakadash, and Shalom. See you next one, Lord's will.